All right, we're going to talk about the Ryder Cup in a minute with Jim Bones Mackay from NBC Sports Golf Channel. Bones is a Valley resident in Scottsdale, and he's getting all excited to go to Bethpage Black, and that's great. I'm excited about that, but I'm also excited that Thursday, November 6th, put this on your calendars because I know fans are going to want to be there at Ability 360. We've done so much through the years with great people at Ability 360. It is their 360 breakfast presented by Arizona Corporate Health. Bones is going to be on stage. He and I are going to chop it up. And most importantly, I don't want golf to get in the way of why Ability 360, Jim. Why that event? Why them?
I just admire so much what they do. I mean, they have this ability to empower individuals to live independent lives and impactful lives within their communities. I myself have a son who's on the spectrum, so I know how much they bring to individuals such as my son and others who struggle with certain things in life. So it's just an amazing process that they go through. It's impacted so many lives across the community, and I would do anything I could to help out in any way possible.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to being there with you. That again is Thursday, November 6th, Ability 360 breakfast. You can go to ability360.org. That's 360 ability360.org. All right, you're in your office. How much jamming have you been doing on Ryder Cup prep? Or, Brad, it's kind of like the Super Bowl. I've been around all these guys. What's the prep been like for you, Bones, for the Ryder Cup?
Well, certainly I was very interested in the picks that both captains made, their six picks, even though on both sides of the coin, it was pretty easy to see who they were going to ultimately assign to positions on the squad. But, it's more, I'm actually very interested in what the Americans do this week in the tournament in Napa. 10 of the 12 players are playing there. It's Silverado, and a number, if not all, of the Europeans. Actually, I think with the exception of Sepp Straka, are playing a very big tournament outside of London. So I'm interested to see who's playing well this week, to see what kind of momentum they can ultimately carry into the Ryder Cup here in a couple of weeks.
Who concerns you in that front right now? Is there a concern you look at and you're just like, Brad, I really want to see this player. I'm not going to throw any names out, but do you have some players you're looking at this weekend?
Well, the one player that I would be interested in seeing in terms of how he's playing is not playing because his wife's about to give birth, and that's Xander Schauffele. I consider Schauffele to be either the second or third best player in the world, and he hasn't had a particularly good year. And I think he's the kind of guy that if he showed up at the Ryder Cup with a lot of game, he could go a long way in terms of determining the outcome. So he interests me. And then, of course, on the other side of the coin, I think John Rahm, because, of course, he's not a PGA Tour player anymore. We really don't have that much of an indication as to how he's playing because we just don't see him week in, week out like we do the other guys. So I'm very curious to see how he plays this week at Wentworth.
They talk about a unified team, Jim. What does that mean to the common fan? Like the last United States team maybe wasn't as unified. What does that mean to the common fan?
Well, it means a lot if you care about who wins ultimately. I mean, certainly, I think the role of the captain is very, very underrated, and certainly in the last 20, 30 years, the Europeans have gotten the best of us in terms of how they've gone about doing things strategically. So I think that it's very, very interesting how they put these teams together, the kind of time they spend together, forging the bonds that they ultimately are this week in Northern California. All of that plays into ultimately, things going successfully for them at the Ryder Cup here again at the end of the month.
The layout of Bethpage Black, either side have an advantage from your standpoint.
Well, Keegan Bradley, the U.S. captain, will have a lot to do with that setup. That's part of the home field advantage that you get. So I would imagine that Bethpage will see very little rough. It'll be very playable, and they will have gone so far in terms of stats to see what kind of yardages we're better at, or I shouldn't say we because I'm not part of the team, but
Yeah.
yardages that they're better at from, say, 180 yards than the European team. And then as a result of that, you ultimately see the par threes and many of the par fours set up to dictate that kind of number.
He's Jim Bones Mackay. He's going to be with me on stage Thursday, November 6th, Ability 360 Breakfast, presented by Arizona Corporate Health, ability360.org. Yeah, we're going to talk a little golf on stage, but primarily it's all about Ability 360 that day. How do you go about the next 2 weeks prepping, or are you prepped? You just need to get to Bethpage and do more work. I'm just giving the fans inside baseball from a broadcast standpoint.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm very happy with where I'm at in terms of my knowledge about the players. again, I'm looking to pick up certain things from Keegan and my friends kind of on the inside
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what may fall into place in terms of pairings. But I just think it's a question of who's playing well going in. Of course, you can hide players to a large degree that aren't playing particularly well because only 8 out of 12 players play the first 4 sessions. So I think that favors a team that's maybe got a couple of guys not playing particularly well. But I just think this is going to be the most heated, the chippiest Ryder Cup we've seen in quite some time. Of course, the Europeans are carrying a tremendous amount of momentum, given the fact they played well in Rome and won in 2 years ago. So they're dead set on coming over and winning an away Ryder Cup, which is very, very difficult to do. And of course, the Americans have not won an away Ryder Cup since 1993. So it's again a very difficult thing to pull off. But I'm very happy with where I'm at. I just can't wait to get started.
As a course reporter, I'll let you go off this. As a course reporter, how are you going to balance? And you don't know till you're there. The fan side of it versus the guy that's in front of you that's got to hit that shot. How are you going to balance that? Because I would think you could every hole say the crowds here doing something just from past Ryder Cups.
Yeah, that's true. You certainly could. They're going to be very, very involved. But also, if for whatever reasons the Americans don't play well, the crowds won't be particularly happy with them either. In that particular kind of case, that actually happened the last time the tournament was played there at Bethpage when a guy had the lead and then gave it up, and the crowd wasn't very happy with him. So I think hopefully I can separate the two. We know that the crowds and what we hear are going to be a constant, to your point, but I think it's just a question of kind of ignoring that and just getting down to the golf at hand.
Good stuff there. I'll let you go off that. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday, November 6th. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks so much for having me.